Today's episode is brought to you by SoundCartel. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Everything, it seems, is changing at a rapid pace. And not only should you embrace change, you should be excited about it. Barry Urquhart says it's got to be part of your DNA. Barry's been advising leading brands in Australia and overseas for decades. And as Managing Director of Marketing Focus, he's a go-to commentator on consumer trends. And if you're yearning for a time when business was a lot simpler, well, you're fooling yourself. Barry's talking to Chris Ashmore.
Well, we can't go back and say like the good old days or these will one day be the good old days, because there is no such thing as good old days. It's all about contemporary. It's the thing that people say, what is the factors that are most effective? There are three pillars of success in business, and that is yes, now, and new. Yes, it's available. Most important of all, it's now. You don't have to take a rain check. And the most compellingly attractive thing in the marketplace at the moment is consumers say, what's new? If you can go out there, package that, communicate it, it represents great value, interest, and you're grabbing the people's attention, but above else, you are grabbing their custom. So what you've got to do is to say, let's innovate, create, and product life cycles are becoming very much shorter. And here's the point. A number of years ago, in the 1970s, there was a book put out by the world's first international futurist. His name was Alvin Toffler. Alvin Toffler had the audacity to say to people in the 1970s that the university graduates of those times will actually be going out into a workplace where they will have 7 career changes in their working life for some 45 to 50 years. There was a state of disbelief in that sort of response. Well, today, a university graduate leaving university in the year 2024 can now expect 17 to 23 career changes because it's all about change innovation. There's no longer about career paths of getting the job and then getting a watch 65 years later when you're about to retire. Change is inevitable. Change should be embraced, and we should be driving change and saying that's the most exciting thing of all, not be resistant to change, but to have it as an integral part of your DNA and your corporate culture.
So we should be embracing the glass as half full, not half empty, and be optimistic about the future.
Very much so, and it is an interesting sort of thing. It's all about perception. A lot of people say, oh, perception is reality. Wrong. If you are a business owner, you put the customer first and you recognize the relevance of the statement, the consumer's perception is the marketer's reality. Don't hold in and say, well, we've always done it this way. It's a question of if only. Now, if we could do this, if only. And of course, that sort of brings in new options, opportunities. It says, hold on, why do we always employ these type of people, or why do we have big department stores? Now, it's an interesting perspective. At the moment in Australia, we have a decreasing number of department stores. The 2 major department stores have got around about 95%. The significant statement was last year, they said, on balance, with consumers changing their buying patterns, 1, we will reduce the number of department stores in our respective chains by anything up to 20%. That could be somewhere in the order of 20 or 15 in each of the networks. So we're going to see the number of department stores in Australia reduce, but most significantly, the size of the individual department stores will also contract as well. So department stores will take on a different guise, purely and simply because they're no longer considered to be anchor stores in shopping centres, and the very reason why you go to a shopping centre, they're there to complement, they're not there as being the primary reason for the visit to that retail complex.
There's always a next step for your business. There's always help at every stage. As you grow your business, we're here to support you every step of the way. Move forward with Mazars. Visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.
What about other businesses, Barry? Do you see other businesses are having to reinvent themselves?
There is a hardware group in Australia, global, very strong, and they're starting to recognise when asked the question, what industry are you in? They're now coming back and saying, no longer are we in hardware, we're in the home, because now they're starting to have dishwashing liquid materials. They've got pets, and that's pet care, pet toys, pet health. So is that a hardware operation? Well, no, but it does relate to people who, when going to buy hardware items, will take those hardware items and they will use those in the home. What are the complementary products? Well, there's pets, because pets are no longer pets. They're members of the family. And when you're at home, you've often got a need to do cleaning. And that's the sort of thing that you come relevant, and you therefore need to reassess and recalibrate exactly what industry are you in. And I think that to a large extent today, most people would start to recognise the importance of they are all in distribution. It's all about the supply chain management, because 70% of the reasons why businesses fail is to a large extent not being able to get the product, service and application to the consumer in the manner, at the time and at a reasonable cost that is expected by that consumer.
Final question, and I know we talked about we need to stay positive and optimistic because there are opportunities out there, but for a small business, is it becoming harder or easier to compete?
Interestingly enough, in America, small businesses represent 99% of the organisations within that nation of 340 million people. Here in Australia, we have a landmass approximately the same, 7.5 million square kilometres, and we've got a population of 26 million people. What we've got to recognise is we only have about 92% of the businesses operating in Australia, therefore approximately 2.8 million, of which around about 2.5 are small to medium-sized businesses. In many instances, small businesses aren't a business as such. It's people simply just buying an income. When we went into COVID, there was a kind of realization, and this is an awakening for everyone listening to this program. Small businesses typically say, the owners, my superannuation is going to be determined by the value of my business. When I'm about to retire, I will sell my business. When COVID came around, the pandemic infected society at large, mobility was kind of cancelled, the value of businesses and therefore the superannuation plans of many owners of small businesses went out the door. They simply didn't have a business to own. So what we need to do is structure a business. Recognise capital, set that aside from cash flow, always be sensitive about profit. Have some retained earnings to put it aside, because the average small business owner today is in the early months of 2024. The owner of that small business superannuation fund is averaging little more than $350,000. That's inadequate for a pension period of an extended period with a longer life expectancy than society has ever known. What we need to do is to be far more financially independent. To me, I think there's greater growth potential because we can take it from 92 to 99% of the share of the businesses. People like dealing with local, but to local, you can't say, oh, well, the man who owns the store, runs the store, or the cooperative concept. Because at the end of the day, notwithstanding the fact that people will say that's a great sentiment, but when I'm out there as a consumer, there's one question uppermost in my mind and a key determining factor. What's in it for me as the consumer? Small businesses have got to put the customer first, forget about loyalty, earn loyalty each and every day, be responsive, be personable, and invest in communication. That's the one thing that you cannot afford to do. When I hear people say, oh, the storm clouds are covering, let's kind of batten down the hatches, any sailor will tell you, when the storm clouds are covering, you don't go down in the bowels of the boat, you go up on deck and you head into the storm, you face it and confront it, and you overcome it very rapidly.
That was Barry Urquhart, Managing Director of Marketing Focus. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast.
SoundCartel.
This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.